Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We're powered by CLNS Radio, where you can subscribe, rate, and review the Game Theory Podcast on iTunes. That would really help us move up in the ratings. It would be tremendous if we got more and more people to listen to the podcast as we gear up toward draft season. Today on the show, we're going to talk a little bit about the draft, but before we do that, we're going to talk about all NBA teams being named today. To do that, we brought on Reags from over at Barstool, who is in the middle of some pretty serious wedding planning right now. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah, man, we're 2 weeks out, so it's coming down the stretch, and now it's just everything that you don't think about, which is the biggest pain in the ass.
So what are some of the issues you're going through right now?
So we got to figure it out. I will say it was relatively easy, but there's always some sort of hiccup. So for me, it was like the seating chart, and figuring out not where people are sitting. That was relatively easy. You know, you throw this family here, friends all along the dance floor and by the bar. Boom, done. Yeah. It was who was sitting with who, and I had it figured out, and then I got a very last-minute person who I didn't think was coming, you know, with a +1, and so we have 10-person tables is like the max we can have at a table, and the table that would fit in easily if it was just them had 9, which meant I just had to completely blow up the spreadsheet, and just I literally spent an hour. It was almost like I just needed the plain whiteboard with a black marker. That was the kind of what I was doing just in Google Docs. Of okay, how can I put this here? I correlated to trying to fold a fitted cover, a fitted sheet. There are no corners.
I mean, I will say this: if my girlfriend and I ever get married, I'm not excited to have to deal with seating charts and have to deal with, everything that goes into wedding planning. That just seems like the worst possible thing.
But see, the analytic part of me, the analytic side of me, love doing the seating chart because it's a puzzle. It's who can I put where? So the very nerd part of me, I was like, all right, this is kind of cool to figure out a puzzle because again, I'm a huge nerd. But on the flip side, I was like, all right, this is a gigantic pain in the ass. I just want a beer and sit on my couch.
Are you a top 5 nerd at Barstool?
Well, it depends on which way you look at it. I hate nerd stuff. I don't like sci-fi. I don't like fantasy. So, but in terms of numbers and puzzles, things like that, I'm probably in consideration.
Yeah. Yeah,
because I love doing that. I love looking at figuring out. I don't want to physically do a puzzle, but if you ask me to solve a problem or solve a word problem like that, fill in the blanks.
Yeah,
I'm cool with those.
Yeah. See, I'm going to a wedding the same weekend as your wedding, which just made me realize that I'm flying to Ohio in 2 weeks, and that's crazy given the fact that I have about 1 billion things to do for work. And I'm flying into Columbus a day early, going out with some friends, and then we're driving up to the wedding is in Cleveland, and I'm lucky enough that
Cleveland's fun, man.
I will say that Cleveland, if you're there for a day and a half, is a really good time.
Yeah, Cleveland's a fun weekend.
Yeah,
there's a lot to do there now.
Yeah, you go out around the Q, you go out around that little area there. It's a pretty good time, yeah. And, I'm excited to go out and see Columbus again. I'm excited to, do all of that. What I will say, though, is that I'm very lucky in that I'm a little bit mad because my girlfriend's going to be in Australia, so she can't come to the wedding and, meet all my friends and do all that thing, from my college friends and stuff. But I'm very lucky in that, one of my best friends from college, who I lived with for 2 or 3 years or something, his girlfriend is also out of town and in Boston, so we're just going there, and I would imagine that things are going to get rowdy. It's going to be a wild weekend.
It's not always, and this is kind of bad to say as I'm getting married, it's not always the worst thing to not have your significant other at a wedding like that, because you just don't have to worry about, are you having fun? What do you want to do? Things like that. You can just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah.
So there's always a very, very small portion of me, God forbid Jen listens to this podcast, that I get pretty psyched when she's not there.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that she's Laura's going to be at another one of our buddies' weddings in Ohio in August. Right. But, for this one, it's not the worst thing in the world that she's not going to be there. I'll get to go out. I'll get to see some friends. I'll get to do that whole thing. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to being back in Cleveland and being back in Ohio. And, crazy thing is the finals might be there, like the night that we're there. So,
I didn't think about that. Yeah. I mean, might be there. Let's be honest. They should be there.
Well, I mean, just in terms of like home and away, like I don't know.
Oh, right.
I mean, let's be clear here. This is going to be Cleveland and Golden State in the finals, but the question is, are they in Golden State over the weekend or are they in Cleveland?
Well, when does that get dictated? We should know.
I think it depends on like if it goes 4 games or if it goes 5 games.
Okay.
Let's not go crazy and say 6.
Yeah. Let's not get nuts here.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be really fun. In that same vein, though, all NBA teams were released today, and LeBron James is on them. Isaiah Thomas is on them. Both Stephen Curry and what I believe Kevin Durant and Draymond Green are on them, as well as Kawhi Leonard. So all 4 conference finalists have a representative on the All-NBA teams. The final teams were, I believe that we had Russell Westbrook and James Harden as your first team guards, Kawhi Leonard and LeBron as your first team forwards, Anthony Davis as your first team center. Second team guards were Isaiah Thomas and Stephen Curry. Second team forwards, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kevin Durant. Second team center was Rudy Gobert. Third team guards were, I believe, John Wall and DeMar DeRozan. The forwards were Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, and the center was DeAndre Jordan. What were kind of your immediate reactions to what you saw whenever those teams were released?
The first thing was, how did Karl Anthony Towns not make one of those teams? Which I think was kind of like the consensus takeaway is, come on, really? DeAndre Jordan's a good player, but Towns should have been on there over him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I did all NBA teams on the podcast earlier, I guess it was probably a month ago or so, I had Karl Anthony Towns second team. I had Rudy Gobert third team. And
I mean, you could interchange any of them, and I'd be fine, but I think your 3 centers should have been... I mean, Davis should have been first team. I'm cool with that. You could have... And then Gobert or Towns, however you wanted to put them, that I would have been fine with that.
Yeah, center is the most loaded position right now in terms of, you could have said Marc Gasol and made a reasonable argument. Given the fact that there are only 3 of those guys on the team versus
I'll challenge you on
other
that.
spots.
I think guard's the most stacked position right now.
Well, there's only 3 center spots, so
Right, but still, only 6 guard spots for... I mean, this is the problem.
I mean, DeMar DeRozan made the team. Can we really say that?
He shouldn't have, but, I mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
But you still put up points. I mean, points isn't everything, and I hate when people use that, but he still did put in 27 a game, which is pretty absurd.
Yeah, he didn't really do anything else, though.
No, but it's still,
but
that's the thing. I mean, that's Reggie Miller's career was doing that.
It was weird to me that there was, selective bias in terms of, Kevin Durant misses 20 games, and we vote him to the second team.
I have no problem with that.
No, neither do I.
Honestly don't.
And I also would have had no problem with Chris Paul being on that team.
Yep.
Because Chris Paul, his first 50 games this year were outrageous. They were just unbelievably good, and then he gets hurt, and they kind of have to figure out what they're going to do coming down the stretch, and maybe it was a little bit rough late in the season. And I think that might have left a bit of a a bad taste in voters' mouths or something, but. Anyone that's saying Chris Paul in 60 games was less valuable than DeMar DeRozan in 80 games, I mean, what are we talking about here?
Did Chris Paul become the most underrated player in the league over the last couple months? Because I feel like he has.
I really think he has. Chris Paul, for me,
I've seen way too much Chris Paul slander.
Chris Paul is still probably a top 5 player in the NBA to me. I
don't know about that. He's the top. I mean, he's easily top 5 point guard, but I mean. Top 5 players, LeBron, who shouldn't even count because he's not a human basketball player anymore.
Right, LeBron, Kawhi. Durant. You've got Stephen Curry. And then are you taking Russell Westbrook and James Harden over Chris Paul? If you're starting a team
at this stage,
if you are starting a team, which one of those guys are you taking?
But I'd probably take. Oh, but see, that's the thing. Just for 1 year.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to. I might take Russ, and I might take Russ over him still.
I still probably take Paul because he provides value on both ends. Like, he's just unbelievable on both ends of the spectrum. Like, he's a great defender, like an all-defensive team member. And he's still going to give you 18 and 12 a night when he's locked in. To me, that is more valuable than what Russell Westbrook and...
Would you take Chris Paul or Anthony Davis?
I would take Chris Paul. Anthony Davis is... And that's not to disparage Anthony Davis. I think he's really good. But, like, I think that he's kind of, like, in a tier lower right now.
See, I'm just thinking of who can do, like you said, who can contribute on both ends and who can kind of do something a little different. Like Anthony Davis, being a good shot blocker, everything like that, can step away from the bucket a little bit. Like, that holds a ton of value, obviously.
Right.
I mean, I love point guards. I love Paul, but yeah, that's a good question. Is where you throw him in there. I mean, he's up there. Like, there's way too much. He's become the most underrated player in the league.
I really think that that's probably the case, and it's all because of he hasn't gotten past the second round. Yeah. I mean, whatever, guys. Like, he's still just unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, like, I think Kyle Lowry in 60 games was better than DeMar DeRozan in 80 games this year. Like, probably. It's crazy to me that you can look at what those two guys do, and, Kyle, again, provides value on both sides of the floor. Way more efficient scorer. I think DeMar had like a 55 true shooting percentage. Kyle Lowry had a 62 or 63 true shooting percentage. Better passer, better defender. He just does so much more on the floor. And I guess to me too, like, I don't really have a problem with you missing like a fourth of the season, I guess. Like, no, like, here's the thing. Ultimately, these things are looked at as legacy awards. And, like, I'm not going to look back on the 2017 season and go, DeMar DeRozan was a top 15 player that season, which is ultimately and ostensibly what this is saying, given how perimeter-oriented the NBA is now.
Well, here's the thing. First off, we need to get rid of position voting in basketball.
I agree with you.
It shouldn't be 2 guards. It should just be vote for the 15 best players in the league.
I agree with that.
If you, like... LeBron James could play one game, and I'd still probably vote him MVP.
If we did top 15 players in the league, we'd probably come up with what? We'd come up with LeBron. We'd come up with Kawhi.
I'd keep the first team. The first team's fine with me. There's 5 right off the bat. They're all in the top 15.
Right. I think that I would say that everyone other than Gobert in the top 10, I think, is there. Right. Well,
the second team was what? Durant. No, you know what? I wouldn't put Isaiah in there. Give me Wall over Isaiah.
I would probably put Isaiah in the top 15, but
I'm saying top 10. I would change Wall and Isaiah without any problems because again, Isaiah gives you nothing defensively.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would say it's Harden, LeBron, Westbrook, Kawhi, Anthony Davis, Stephen Curry, Giannis, Kevin Durant, Isaiah Thomas, John Wall, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler. So I think that 12 of the 15 are right. And then I would also probably throw in Chris Paul. I probably would not throw in Karl Anthony Towns right now. I would. Probably would put in Kyle Lowry. And then... Man, it gets that last spot would be tricky, I guess, because I'm trying to go through who else got votes. I mean, like Marc Gasol got a ton of votes.
Gordon Hayward got votes.
Is it like Gordon Hayward or Paul George? Like it might be one of those two, right? Like is your 15th man to me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, keep the 5. It said Wall over Isaiah for your 10.
I mean, honestly, I probably don't throw Lillard in there. Like,
no. Yeah, he's close. Like, he's one of those names you mentioned, and then you just like, I think there's still better out there.
Yeah, like I think Hayward is probably ahead of Lillard.
I mean, I would throw Towns in there. No questions asked. Over Gobert and Jordan and Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Paul would be in there. So that's, yeah, I mean.
I think my 15th would be Hayward this year. I think that he would have been the guy for me. And that would have obviously had some pretty massive implications that we'll talk about in a second here.
Yeah, I would take out Isaiah, Gobert, and Jordan and put in Paul, Towns, and DeRozan. And DeRozan. So, yeah, I mean, those are in there. And then there's a hodgepodge of names that you can kind of miss around for the last two spots.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. But I agree with you that we should do the top 15 instead of these positionally tied votes. I mean, DeAndre Jordan has now made All-NBA 3 years in a row. Right. I don't really think anyone – DeAndre Jordan I think is really underappreciated, and he has a great story. But I do also believe that he's been kind of – I mean, he's not been a top 15 player. Let's just say that. He's not – in any of those years, he's probably not been a top 15 player in the league. And that's fine. I mean, he's still been an incredibly valuable player. But kind of moving into the next part of this that I want to talk about, if we're going to, place these all-NBA voting into player contract negotiations, essentially, where you're eligible for designated veteran player extensions and, designated player, contracts, realistically, I think we need to do the top 15 players. We need to not do just whoever we want or based on positions, because the game is just too positionless now. If you want to go maybe no, but the guards are too valuable. Yeah, we just need to go top 15 because so many of the guys that I just named are all perimeter players.
Right. And that's how it is. I mean, it's not necessarily positionless basketball right now, but it's more of it's a guard dominant league or a wing dominant league.
Yep.
And the thing is, and I stress this all the time. Me and you've talked about it, and I've been making the push that the positions in basketball, no matter what level you're on, are point guard, wing, stretch, post, and LeBron. Those are the 5 positions in basketball. And we got to stop labeling. You can be a big guy. That doesn't mean you're a center or a forward. Laurie is a wing. Kevin Durant is a wing.
Ben Simmons is going to be your lead ball handler in Philadelphia next year. For
that's fine.
And that's going to lead
Malik Monk.
Yeah, that's going to lead Malik Monk to play shooting or to play your nominal point guard position, but he's never going to be the bring the ball up the floor, point guard, floor general kind of guy. He's going to be a scorer. If he goes to Philly.
You know what name I forgot off the top 15 that would absolutely be in there is DeMarcus Cousins.
I would not have him there this year. I think that he was extremely harmful to what Sacramento was doing to the point that they decided to trade him, and then it kind of took a little bit of time for him to adjust in New Orleans. I think he'll be there next year, but I actually don't really have a problem with Cousins not being there.
Yeah, but going back to what I was saying, yeah, I just think you need to get rid of it because, like you said, if we're going to reward people for making this team and it's going to be a contractual, and we're talking millions upon millions of dollar difference of making this team or not.
Yeah.
You can't limit it to being 6 spots when there's 32, guards that are in consideration. And there's 4 quote centers fighting over the same spot.
Sorry, my cat has decided to just scream at me until I pat him.
It's unfair to a couple people like the Gordon Haywards and the Paul Georges, where maybe they make this team if there's not positions. Maybe Hayward sneaks into that 15th spot. There wasn't really. I mean, one of them were going to get left out regardless.
Yeah.
Of the way it's set up right now.
Darren Ravel just tweeted out the media cost Paul George $70 million or whatever. And that's such bullshit. The media did not cost Paul George shit. the media didn't screw Paul George and Gordon Hayward because, to be honest, the NBA, like the media, they got the forwards portion of this voting right. Like Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green should both be on that third team. They both had ostensibly better seasons than Paul George and Gordon Hayward, and that's okay to admit.
Right, now, and then you had Durant, and who was the other second team
it was
forward?
Giannis, and Giannis is a beast.
Which, sure, maybe, but maybe you classify Giannis as a guard. Maybe that's where you can say the media screwed. But again, that's not a media thing.
Right. So, like, that's not a media thing. That's an NBA thing. So, like, the NBA's adherence to positions, like you're saying, is what screwed Paul George and Gordon Hayward out of getting this money. Like, I don't think anyone in the world thinks that DeMar DeRozan is better than Paul George and Gordon Hayward on a basketball floor, or at least like reasonable minds right now. And, you know, I think that DeMar DeRozan had a great year. Like he had a year worth recognition in some way, but Paul George and Gordon Hayward are both just more complete players. And that's fine to admit. The right guys, based on the way that the award voting is set up for the media, made the team. So I get it. Like if you think the media shouldn't have an effect on this stuff, and I think that the media probably should not have as much an effect on this stuff, and we'll kind of talk about what I would do if I was, you know, running the NBA and running all NBA voting. Yeah, I'm fine with that argument, but it's pretty bullshit to say that the media cost anyone anything. Like I saw CJ McCollum tweeting about, like, you know, I don't know how long the media will be having this kind of like influence, and I'm just like, you know what, like, I get it that it's awkward, but you know what? They didn't get it wrong this time. Like, they didn't get it wrong for Paul George and Gordon Hayward.
Right. And here's the thing is, there's not a great solution. I mean, there is a solution, but, you know, when people say, well, put it to the GM and the owners and let the players vote, guess what? They're just going to screw each other even more. Yeah. Because the GMs and owners, they can purposely vote against their guys so they can pay them less money.
Yep.
Or, you know, they have that. Players can screw people or help teammates out, you know, or their friends out because they have the capability here. So
you'd have to make it public. You'd have to, like, that would be the only way that you could get owners and executives, and
that would just ruin. That would not. I wouldn't say ruin the league, but that would be harmful to the league.
Oh yes, it would absolutely be harmful to the league.
So I get mad.
You're going to let them have the full vote. Like,
I get mad when people say, "Well, they need to move it to people who pay attention." Honestly, how much do you think like the owners, GMs, and players pay attention to who should be voting as opposed to their thoughts? Like we see with the All-Star game, you know, they just, and granted that's not as big of a deal. It's their votes are like you know, who was it this year that was it Tony Allen rating him like. You know, like CJ Miles, I think, got a vote from Tony Allen this year.
Yeah, exactly. So here's kind of my idea in terms of how I would do this. So I would say create a panel of players. Like, for instance, a guy like CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum is super informed, super smart about all of this stuff. A guy like Jared Dudley would be another really good guy.
Would be great.
Like, create a panel of players that has 1/3 of the MVP and all NBA and all of that voting.
And I would say no ties to the NBA. Like Chris Paul can be on as president of the Players Association.
Yes. And I would say that those players cannot vote for their teammates, right? Because like it's just going to, again, create awkward situations for them.
Right.
Then I would say 1/3 goes to coaches, NBA executives, whatever. Whoever you want to give that kind of power to. Again, they can't vote for their own players because that's just going to create an awkward situation. And then, again, I would say 1/3 goes to the media because regardless of, like, kind of what you think of the media in this realm, they still are the most independent entity of those three parties, right? Like, they still have the fewest ties and the fewest motivations toward getting this thing right. Because if you're a guy like, you know, I'm sure CJ McCollum would love to vote for Damian Lillard here, and I'm sure CJ McCollum would love to vote for like some of the guys he's close with in the NBA. I'm sure that executives would love to keep costs down on these players. the media doesn't. I mean, maybe the media will vote more for players that they like to be around, but I don't think that comes into play as much as it does for the camaraderie and brotherhood of players and the financial incentives of executives and coaches. So I like having the media be a part of it, but I wish it was just a part of it, not the entirety of the voting, because I think that the best way to do this and the best way to get an accurate and representative place of who the top 15 players in the NBA are is by getting rid of positions and by finding a large number of voices who are intelligent and informed, who have differing perspective and points of view. So that's what I would do. I mean, I think that that's a fair, equitable kind of way to go about it.
Yeah, there needs to be some sort of broken down vote, just so one hand doesn't hold all the cards. Right. Because then it doesn't matter who you are or what. There's always a bias with how you vote. And like you said, media will vote for either teams they cover more, see more, or players that maybe give them a little more access or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's still bias there, but it's the least bias from a contractual standpoint as the other two.
Yeah.
So I just think you need to make it into some sort of agreement between 3 entities, 4 entities, however you want to do it. I agree that, players, here's the thing. I want to put not only players and coaches, but I also want to put the media in this. They should have to take what is equivalent of a driver's test to be allowed to vote. Because someone voted LeBron second team, and that person should be shamed in public.
I am 100% fine with something of a basketball aptitude test for who is winning,
and that should be public.
I don't know if we need to make that public. I will say
no. Put it on NBA TV. we get award shows in public. This is better drama. You're telling me you wouldn't love to imagine a coach or an executive or a player just struggling through something.
This is a horrible idea.
It's a great idea. I hope somebody listens to this and picks it up, and then now I'm rich.
Oh my God!
I'll host.
You will host. Yes, that'll work super well. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on all NBA. I think that we need just a slight reform. I don't think we need.
The biggest thing is just get rid of positions.
Yeah, get rid of positions.
And it's so easy. Just vote for the 15 players. Yeah. And then it even goes to college. All Americans, all conference teams, all everything. Just vote for the 5 best players. Or 15. However many teams there are 5 players on the court. You vote for, fill out 5. It doesn't matter who you put on the court. We see teams go with big. We see teams go small. Why do we have to limit to 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center?
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Are there any other kind of overriding thoughts? Do we think that there was anyone else who kind of got shafted in any way? Anyone else who, was a snub? Again, I think that Damian Lillard deserves credit for an awesome year. He's probably right in that realm of top 15 player, top 20 player in the NBA, and didn't get many votes. Kyrie Irving didn't get many votes, although I probably would have voted DeMar DeRozan over Kyrie even. There's just there are so many different ways to kind of attack this, right? There are a lot of really good NBA players. It feels like the talent level is higher than it's been in a while in the league. And it's going to be tough. It's always a tough
My last thing is, I don't think there's necessarily a bunch of snubs. I would have moved a couple things around. I probably would have Wall second team, Thomas third, just because Wall gives you more defensively. And to me, I hate when people make the argument, and I saw it all day today, team success. All right, that's not a great argument of point because this is an individual award. If team success, people pick and choose what team success means.
Yeah.
Robert Horry is one of the greatest players ever. He only played on great teams.
Just in the realm of there only being 5,000 NBA players ever. He's one of the best players ever.
if you're basing it, like, when people use team success as this, like, measuring stick.
Yeah.
And then I'll say right back to him. So then Robert Horry is one of the best players ever. Because all he did was play on great teams and win championships.
Yeah, and he played a good role in them, too.
And was a starter, right. And then people are like, well, that doesn't count. It's like, what do you can't pick and choose. Like, to me, team success is so overblown. Like, I get, like, if you can... I understand using it somewhat in an argument, but when that's, like, your strict baseline of, well, Karl Anthony Towns can't be on All-NBA team because the Timberwolves weren't good this year. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean he wasn't good. I think people get locked up in this team success thing. That needs to be taken out too.
No, I was tweeting earlier today. Like, if you've seen Mike Trout at all this year, like, he's just been incredibly good, and now through his first 5 seasons, 2 MVPs, 3 second place finishes for MVP. And I said, like, basketball, you can dominate the game. Like, a single individual can dominate the game a little bit more. But I'm not sure that LeBron is as good at his sport as Mike Trout is at his. And people were like, yeah, well, talk to me when Mike Trout has 3 rings and has been to the World Series 7 straight years. And I'm just like, first and foremost, I literally just said a single player can dominate the game way more in basketball than they can in baseball. Second, like, how are you even equating team success in basketball to team success in baseball? It's just crazy to me that people put this premium, and like, in basketball, I think that there is a premium to be placed on it, but it's just crazy to me how much it is oftentimes.
Yeah, I really wish there was a. I just wish team success wasn't like this huge argumentative point, just because I think it gets overblown and causes people to overrate some players and things along those lines.
Yeah. Also, the most egregious vote on this thing is the person who put Kawhi Leonard on the 3rd team.
That's so dumb. That's just so dumb.
I have so many questions.
I mean, to me, still the dumbest one is whoever put LeBron on 2nd team.
Yeah.
Like, I said this last night. I think it was Chris Towers or Chris Mannix. One of the two tweeted out something like, they want, if the awards were voting was moved to June, LeBron would have had 6 or 7 MVPs. And I was like, doesn't matter when voting is, LeBron should have 6 or 7 MVPs.
Yeah.
Like, if you're voting for the most valuable player, LeBron has been the most valuable player since, like, 2008.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's right. I mean,
like, Derrick Rose never should have won an MVP. Whoever won, it's the Jordan Karl Malone type syndrome where people just get sick of voting for him.
Well, I mean, the thing is with Rose, though, there was like that massive backlash to him moving to Miami. And to be honest, I will say this, like, I kind of think Dwight Howard should have won MVP that year. Like, Dwight Howard was crazy good that year.
Yeah, I mean, to me, just LeBron should have, honestly, LeBron should have won every year since, since 2010.
Yeah, if it's a best player award, then yeah, you're right. I mean,
most valuable is who is the most valuable. There's nobody more valuable than LeBron.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, just look what happened when he left Cleveland. Look what happened when he left Miami. Like, it's LeBron.
Yeah, that's probably right. All right, let's move on. Let's talk NBA draft lottery night and where we're at with the New York Knicks particularly, but we'll kind of talk about some of the other takeaways first. What was your just initial thought after the lottery?
I mean, it's when is Minnesota going to catch a break and move up a spot? And the Knicks just had to go win game 82. They are so dumb. Like, they're just so dumb. Like, it just that game changed the course of 3 franchises off season.
Yeah. No, that was the craziest thing is now, like, Sacramento, I think, has moved up once in like 30 years or something. And the second time that they move up, they have to give up their pick.
Right. I will say I'm very intrigued by the draft order. Like, I think there's a lot of real interesting things that can happen on draft night if there's no trades, obviously.
Where are you at with Lonzo and the Lakers? Like, do we think that this is just done?
I think so. I said this today. Someone asked me this today. I did a mailbag. I think De'Aaron Fox is a better prospect. I have Fox higher, and it's not by much. I mean, it's 2A, 2B, or 1A, 1B, however you want to label him. I have Fox as a very, very slightly better prospect than Lonzo Ball. Mm-hmm. But the way Magic Johnson has gushed about Lonzo Ball, before he became, I forget what game he was at, but he was at a Lonzo Ball game or a UCLA game before he became director of basketball operations, and he just talked about how much he would love to see Lonzo at the Lakers, blah, 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 blah. In his first draft, if this wasn't Magic's first draft, maybe he passes on Lonzo Ball for like a De'Aaron Fox or someone else. I just can't see it this first time around.
Yeah, I don't think it's a done deal. I think Lonzo.
No, I think it's like 90-10.
I think it's probably a little bit lower than 90, but like
a little lower.
I think he's the favorite to be taken there for sure. Probably pretty strong favorite to be taken there. I will say though, like if they can get those guys in for workouts, and I think they'll be able to, just knowing that Lonzo will work out for the Lakers, he's already said he will, and then De'Aaron will work out for anyone because that's just kind of how he's wired.
Right. Plus, he probably wants to go against Lonzo Ball again.
Oh yeah, I don't think that that's going to happen. To be honest, like I just don't see any way that those representations take those risks. But having said that, like Magic Johnson hasn't been out scouting guys all year, right? Like he did see that De'Aaron Fox Lonzo Ball game where De'Aaron just like kind of took his heart out in the middle of everyone, like in the massive audience in Memphis in the Sweet 16. But having said that, like I think that because he hasn't been out like scouting like crazy all year, it wouldn't surprise me if individual workouts play a little bit more of a role. And traditionally, the Lakers are kind of known for having individual workouts play quite a role in their draft decisions. So it wouldn't surprise me if like De'Aaron has this crazy workout and Lonzo Ball comes in and has a solid workout but nothing all that crazy. If De'Aaron ends up being the pick, it wouldn't be crazy to me. Like I don't think that Jason Tatum or Josh Jackson are out of it either. I'm sure they're going to bring those guys in. So like I don't know. Like I'd put Lonzo as the heavy favorite, but I don't think this is done at all either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a guarantee, but I'd be very shocked if it's not Lonzo.
Yeah,
and it's just because if Magic has scouted, he's only scouted Lonzo Ball because he's in LA.
Do I even want to ask about like the LaVar stuff now?
Go ahead. I'm fine with that. Let's go.
So like you and I have both been pretty in on LaVar. I think that's fair, right?
Yeah. Oh, I've been very in on LaVar.
Yeah. I'm not like out on LaVar, but I mean, I'm kind of out on LaVar after Wednesday.
Is it weird that I can see though why? Like I'm not condoning what he did. Like, is it possible to say that I think kind of both were wrong?
I think both of them were wrong.
Right. Like, I would not handle myself that way. I wouldn't want somebody I'm associated with to handle myself that way.
Well, it's disrespectful. I mean, that's ultimately the thing is just like, don't be a dickhead and be respectful to people, especially on television.
I don't think it was a sexist thing. Like, I think he would be that way to anybody. Like, I really do. Like, I think he would sit there. Like, I think the stay in your lane thing, I don't think it was necessarily a sexist thing. It was just him being a dick. And I think he'd be a dick to anybody.
I don't think that situation plays itself out the same way if Christine Leahy is a male. Like, I don't think that...
Probably not as intense, but I don't think he meant to make it a sexist stay in your lane type statement.
I don't
as
think
opposed to him just being a dick.
I don't think he meant to, but I think that, between that and, the comments he's made in the past about him marrying his wife to create basketball players and breed basketball players, like, I think that we can probably say that there are some very significant questions about his thoughts on women.
Right. Oh, for sure. Like, he's never been a saint. So, I mean, I kind of knew that going in. Like, I'm all in on this guy, and I know he not the best guy in the world, but I can see why he's mad at Leahy from Leahy's comments.
I agree. I mean, he questioned his parenting skills, and I think that
that's just being a parent. I think more than anything else. Now he's obviously on a parent on steroids.
I think they're both wrong, but
right.
LaVar needs to kind of understand. You go on TV and act like a child like that, like there's going to be blowback, and you have to understand too, and this is where like them doing their own thing and not having publicists and not having people around them to like tell them cut this shit out. Like this is where that kind of stuff comes into play, because a smart like person with public relations experience is going to say, LaVar, if you do this and you just ignore her, it's going to come off to a lot of people as you being sexist. And to be honest, I kind of think it's sexist in a way, because again, I do not think that that ends up playing itself out the same way if it's a man versus a female. But
right, like my thing is, I didn't think it started sexist, but it ended up turning sexist.
Right, and like he made a couple.
I think he would stay in your lane to anybody just because that's who he is.
I agree with the stay in your lane part, but like
but that's the part that everyone's kind of held up on. I feel like
he made like a couple other comments too in there that like were very questionable in terms of just sexism and everything like that. And then he made like the only thing Jason Whitlock knows is snacks comment. Like, look,
that made me laugh though.
Look, you want to talk shit about Jason Whitlock? There are like 97,000 ways to talk shit about Jason Whitlock. Like that guy, his opinions are questionable beyond questionable, and oftentimes just so ridiculous that I can't even comprehend the logic that is going into what he's saying. Talk about that. Don't talk about a dude with a weight problem or like a dude who, has, problems like that. Like that's just stupid to me.
It is dumb, and it's lowest common denominator. But just hearing something about like the word snacks just kind of makes me laugh.
The word was funny, I will say that.
Right, like it wasn't like, oh, you're fat. It was just all you can talk. It is a good jab. Like it's a good like summer camp jab at someone. But I mean, you can't be saying that like on a professional level.
No.
But I don't know. I mean, I see where it's wrong, but I also kind of. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I did kind of giggle at it a little bit, also because it is, who it is and everything. But
like,
I mean, it's just
someone needs to get to
though.
LaVar now and say like, you need to cut it back. Like you need to cut back now. Like you have fucked up and people are turning on you. Whereas after these shoe releases, you had a little bit of momentum where you were taking on the establishment. Like you tossed that away for a lot of people on Wednesday, and you need to cut the shit now and cut it back some.
Although what bothers me, and it's the fact that a lot of these shows, like Coward Show and everything, it just turned it into like a news cycle now where they have to like come up with some news. And I'm not a Coward fan. Like I just don't necessarily like him or his takes or anything like that or what he does. But
I think he's actually really good at what he does. But I think that there are certainly some.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I'm just not a fan. And he said it today. He said he was on. He's brought him on 3 times now because of ratings, and it's like and because he makes news, and that's why I didn't stop. And it's like, well, that's not how it should be. Like, give me something. Give me something. And I understand why you bring him on yesterday, but I think it's just getting to the point where just cut him off. Like you can just cut him off.
I think that now you cut him off, but like I do think that he was bringing something to the table before, because like in some way you are gaining like a bit more of background into Lonzo Ball by listening to LaVar and kind of, seeing what he says, both about his son, about, what Lonzo's background was like before he got to UCLA and before he got like into the high stream public of consciousness. Right. So like, I think that there is value in that in some way. And I think that there's value in entertainment where, I'm okay with like chasing for ratings in a way. If the guy is entertaining and not being a dickhead. But like after yesterday, I think we can just agree, like, cut it back, chill out. We need to
give me more pieces like Ramona Shelburne's piece instead of having him on the radio.
Yes, like what Ramona did was perfect. I thought that was awesome.
And it was well done. So she did a really good job with that one.
Yeah, it was well done. It was great. Let's go back to the lottery though. The Knicks.
Yep.
What do you got for me?
Fuck Jim Dolan. They should be okay. they should be okay because they will have 2 point guards to pick from, barring anarchy in the first 7 picks.
And depending on what you think of Ntilikina.
Well, that's what I'm counting. I'm counting him and Smith. Like I think Fox goes, I think Fultz goes, and I think Ball goes before they pick at 8. So to me, there's a couple of people I want them to avoid. I want them to avoid Larry and Isaac, not because I think they're bad players, but just because I feel like they're redundant, especially with like Kristaps, like a taller guy who can stretch the floor.
I think Isaac would be really good, but I think there are some questions about him being in New York.
Yeah, like I just don't like the fit with Isaac. But I think they're going to be, like, I like both their games. I just don't want them on the Knicks. And then whatever you do, just don't reach for, like, Justin Jackson or, like, Jared Allen. Just take whatever point guard is there, unless, for some reason, like a Tatum, a Jackson, or or Monk falls to you.
Yeah.
Like, it's very simple. Just take a point guard or take one of those guys that falls for some reason.
One of my, like, ideas that I kind of want to see happen is I want Denver to try and trade up and try and get one of those forwards, like an Isaac, a Tatum, or a Jackson. Would you be interested in Denver trading you Emmanuel Mudiay? Like,
no, I don't want anything to do with Mudiay.
Okay. Then never mind. I was going to say,
but
like,
I guess
Mudiay,
like what else is there? But.
I was going to say, like, Mudiay, Beasley, and, like, 13 for number 8. Or, like, Mudiay and 13 for number 8. Maybe not even throwing in Malik Beasley.
I don't know, because it's such a drop-off from 8 to 13 in this draft.
Yeah, it is, for sure.
Because 13, you're looking at maybe, like, a Donovan Mitchell or one of the bigs.
Mm-hmm.
Depending who you like there. I wouldn't do it
there.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it in this draft. Now, maybe if you throw in Mudiay 13 and a first next year, maybe I'm listening a little bit more now, just because you're stockpiling young guys.
What if I gave you a Malik Beasley?
I'd still want I'd want a first next year probably over Beasley, but maybe. But I think the drop off from 8 to 13 in this draft I think is noticeable.
Yeah, I agree.
And I like Dennis Smith and Frank more than Mudiay.
Yeah, if Dennis Smith is there or if De'Aaron Fox are there, I think that
Fox is my pipe dream.
Yeah, like if any of those guys are there, like any of the, for whatever reason, Lonzo Ball, De'Aaron Fox, or Dennis Smith, like point guard trio are there, the Knicks should just run to the podium and take them.
Yeah, it should be a no-brainer.
Right. The question is, what do you do if one of those guys isn't there, right? So, like...
Then you just take Frank.
Yeah, you could. You could totally do that. I have questions on whether or not he's a point guard, to be honest. Like, I'm not sure he's a crazy enough athlete, but he's such a project. He's so far away that, like...
Right. He's what, 18 and a half?
Yeah, like, if he turns into a better athlete, then he's definitely a point guard and everything's fine.
Yeah, so if that happens, how would the first 7 go? Like, if you're a Knicks fan, what's the worst case scenario? How do the first 7 go? Let's say Fultz goes 1, Ball goes 2, Tatum Jackson or Monk goes 3, Tatum goes 4, Jackson goes 4, Fox 5, Tatum 6. And let's say Isaac goes 7.
I would say it's Markelle 1, Lonzo 2, Monk 3, Jackson 4, Tatum.
So Fox 5.
Fox 5, Smith 6, Tatum 7. And you're left with Isaac, Ntilikina, and Markkanen.
Yeah, they honestly, that would scare me because they would probably take Jonathan Isaac.
Which, again, really good fit on the floor, I think. It's just like, is his offensive game going to develop as well?
Right. Like, I just don't I don't like him with this, like, him and Chris. Like, if they have Chris outside, I'd be all in on Jonathan Isaac. I just don't like, with how much more help they need, how many holes they have to fill, I'd much rather them just see them take a guy that plays a little bit different than what they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would still go Frank. My fear is that they do take Isaac there. Also in consideration there, I wouldn't love it, but I wouldn't hate it. Zach Collins.
I mean, I strongly don't want them to take Zach Collins because that would make Kristaps a 4. And
yeah, I know. That's why I'm saying that would make me hate it, but I could understand them, quote, reaching for him at that spot.
Yeah. I mean,
because it's like you're playing with projects at that time.
Here's the biggest question you have to ask yourself. So, over under a year and a half until they trade Kristaps. I'm just messing with you. I'm totally just messing with you.
I mean, with the Knicks, I'll bet the under. The other thing I will bet all my money on is pick number 7 is going to be a Hall of Famer, and pick number 9 will make a couple All-NBA teams. Because the last time the Knicks picked number 8, Steph Curry went 7, and DeMar DeRozan went 9.
That's funny.
And Jordan Hill was the Knicks pick because... Although I will give credit to the Knicks. I said this, and I was talking to my guy Clem from Barstool.
Yeah.
Talking to him on G-Chat the other day. And we both were talking about, like, this Knicks front office right now hasn't done the worst job drafting. Like, they found Kristaps, they found Hernan Gomez.
They're good scouts. Yeah, they have great scouts.
Like, they traded Hardaway for a first rounder. I liked what they did when they traded Hardaway for Grant. So I thought Jaren Grant was going to be okay.
The organizational, like the organization of the front office isn't the problem. It's the two guys at the top in Dolan and Phil Jackson that are the problems.
It's also the Joe Noah contract, but
right again that's Phil Jackson though. Like that's a Jackson decision.
From a drafting standpoint, they've been fine. So I actually have faith in them drafting what doesn't feel like a Jordan Hill at this spot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just who's there, and that's why. And I forget who said it. Might have been you that said it. And I thought it too. Is the 2 most important picks of this draft is Philly at number 3 and Sacramento at number 5.
Yeah.
Because you can plug kind of who else is going where.
Like if Philly ends up taking just Josh Jackson, then everything's probably fine for the Knicks, I would think.
Yeah, because you might get Monk there, unless Minnesota takes Monk.
Right. Now, Minnesota could take Malik Monk. I guess Orlando could too.
I really like Monk in Minnesota.
Yeah, it'd be a good fit. And the funny thing is, like, Malik Monk could theoretically be a decent fit in the triangle if they're married to the triangle for whatever reason. I hope for your sake that this experiment kind of runs its course, but it's not the worst idea if you're going to take him. Also, if you believe that, like, once he gets into NBA space, he's going to be able to create at the rim. I still don't know that I'm there on him, but ceiling is super high on Malik Monk. I mean, that's what I keep saying. Like, in the first mock draft I did on this podcast with Chris Stone on Wednesday, like, I had Malik Monk going 3 to Philly because I love the fit. Like,
but I had too.
I don't think that Malik Monk's ceiling is crazy different from what, like, Jason Tatum's. I mean, it's probably a little bit lower than Jason Tatum's ceiling, but, like, it's not like a wild reach, like,
no. And I think because what we saw him do this past year at Kentucky, like the Carolina game, like Georgia game, where when he gets going, there aren't many NBA or college that get going like him.
Yeah. And
I don't care how old you are, if you're coming in your rookie year and you can get going like that makes your ceiling, for the next 15 years pretty damn high. But I mean, his is all going to be based on fit. I think he fits really well with, like, I would love to see him in Minnesota. I think he fits really well there. I think he fits well in Philly, obviously, especially if they're in love with Simmons as your primary ball handler. And Orlando, just because Orlando needs someone that can just get their own bucket.
Yeah, I mean, the problem for him is that, like, he's never going to be able to develop as a driver in Orlando just because they don't have enough floor spacing.
He at least would be able to. The thing is, would he be in Orlando good enough? I could see Orlando. I shouldn't say he'd be a good fit there. I could see Orlando taking him because they need someone that isn't Aaron Gordon or Evan Fournier or something like that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. All right. You got anything else for me, Reags, before we get out of here?
No, just please tell me the Knicks will be okay at some point in my life.
I don't know that I can make promises for you on that, buddy.
I mean, it's New York. Isn't there some pissed off mob guy with James Dolan? Like, can't there be an accident in Madison Square Garden at some point?
Oh my God! I mean that
we gotta get him out of there.
Oh man, I feel bad. But
tax evasion or something? Like, can't he go to jail?
Oh man, let's get out of here. Reags, tell the people where they can find you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Barstool Reags. You can subscribe to my podcast with Ben Brust, former guard from Wisconsin, called the Fundamentally Sound Podcast, which is on Twitter at Fundamentally SD, on iTunes, all that good stuff. And you can read my stuff over at Barstool Sports. If you go to the main site, if you're looking for the direct city or whatever, how we have it associated, I'm under Barstool U. Usually about 4 o'clock every day, something's up.
Yeah, Reags does a great job over there. We'll be back next week at the Game Theory Podcast. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes. I really appreciate everyone listening over the course of the last week. It was a good week for the show, and hopefully we can keep that momentum going toward the NBA draft. Until next time, though, we'll talk soon. Bye.